What's up, guys? They're really out here talking about banning crypto. And so that's what we're talking about as well. Welcome back to a Breakdown Bite. Today, we are talking about an article that has been making its way all around crypto Twitter for the last day or so. I tweeted about it yesterday. I said, if you had any doubt what the U.S. anti-crypto intellectual establishment sees as their endgame, look no further. This author has been invited to testify before Congress numerous times and here argues for a total ban on crypto and its eradication from the United States. I think that the number one line, the most revealing line, comes from this end conclusion. Some have expressed concerns about the United States losing its edge as a global leader in cryptocurrency innovation, but it is undesirable to be a leader in an innovation this harmful. All right. So what is this article? It is an article in Foreign Affairs called The Case for Banning Crypto. For finance, the blockchain's risks far outweigh its rewards. And effectively, it says exactly what it describes in the title. It's a case for banning crypto. It says the loud part or the quiet part out loud, and it argues that this is an industry that should not be allowed to exist. And it has a whole set of reasons for that. Basically, that in the context of a type of asset that can't be valued, it allows for fraud, and it conflates the failures of specific institutions, including FTX, with crypto itself, and so on and so forth. The point to me is much less the specific arguments, although you can kind of get a sense of what this group of opponents are thinking is going to be politically resonant by looking at those arguments, but it's more what it means that this is now the state of the discourse. And I think it's important to recognize that Hillary Allen, the author, is not sort of just some fly-by-night crypto critic. She is a person who has been invited to testify in front of Congress and the Senate numerous times. 3 times over the last 2 years, she's been invited to testify before the Congress or Senate around crypto issues, around financial stability issues. This is someone who has the ear of Washington, in other words. The choice of the publication, Foreign Affairs, is another sort of insider type of publication. And I think that we have to take it much more seriously because of that as a part of the discourse. They have now opened up a thread where it is reasonable to, instead of, say, explore trying to regulate crypto, that regulation of crypto might be a waste of time, and what it needs is just to ban it. So that's sort of the argument that you see extended here by Stephen Deal, who is, of course, one of the loudest critics of crypto. He says there's a compelling argument that since crypto assets can be created at zero cost without limit and have no intrinsic value, then regulating them is an aimless and unboundedly expensive public burden. So perhaps we should consider a total crypto ban. What matters is that this has been said behind the scenes for quite some time. Everyone who works in Washington has said that part of why Democrats under the Biden administration have not gone through with bipartisan legislation around things like stablecoins is that there's a meaningful percentage of them. And I'm not necessarily talking about elected officials so much as appointed officials, regulatory bureaucrats, who believe that regulating crypto would in fact legitimize it by giving it the force of law, right? As soon as you regulate something, you're saying this is a real thing. It's a thing that should be allowed. It should be allowed under these rules, but it should be allowed. And there's a group of people who do not believe that crypto should be allowed. And now they are giving voice to their opinions. Now, I thought the most interesting response from anyone that I read about this, obviously crypto Twitter had lots to say about Professor Allen and her thesis and all that. But I thought that the most interesting conversation came from Makesy here. And effectively what they write is that there is a contrast between a dishonest and implicit ban on crypto, which is what they argue we have now, versus an honest/explicit authoritarian ban, and that they are effectively the same, but they are different in that at least we get to debate the honest and explicit authoritarian ban publicly. He says that Allen's novel contribution to the discourse here is advocating for dropping the implicit nature of the ban by encoding it in law and making it fully explicit. So part of his argument, or part of Makesy's argument, rests on the idea that there is an implicit ban, a soft ban on crypto right now. And I think that there are some interesting arguments for that position. Effectively, what we've been talking talking about with Operation Choke Point 2.0 is not a mustache twisting conspiracy in which a set of nefarious actors come together under cloak of darkness to hatch a dastardly plan to screw crypto. Instead, it's just the opponents of crypto that exist in all the different institutions of power, all the different regulatory bodies, having more clout right now because of the institutional failures of the last year and screaming their way to a soft ban. In a market economy like the US, all it takes for there to be an effective ban on and pinch on the institutions that service the crypto industry is for it to become politically too costly for them to deal with it. And when you are, for example, a bank, seeing a senator, for example, like Elizabeth Warren, castigating on other banks, your peers, for interacting with this industry, do you really think that it's going to be worth it to go deal with that potential political pressure? Absolutely not, right? And so effectively, again, without any of that mustache twirling, a ban is created without having to be explicit. Of course, there's all sorts of questions of due process and whether that's a society you want to live in. And that's exactly what Makesy gets at here. They write, the dishonest and implicit and honest/explicit authoritarian banhammer approaches can be contrasted with a more epistemically humble position that we should not depart from what were long-standing shared cultural values of protecting the civil liberties enshrined in the Constitution, even if we don't see a benefit in a given technology at the time. One could even go so far as to express optimism that privacy-preserving blockchain technology might one day allow users to retain digital property rights and monetize their data, and that this could be a preferable state of affairs to training their own AI replacements for free as digital serfs of nationalized tech monopolies. There are a huge number of important conversations coming around the nature of AI and what it does, what a post-AI society looks like, that I'm excited to spend more time on. One of the things that you're starting to see is people wondering, thinking about, and exploring the extent to which decentralized systems, such as those being developed in and around the crypto industry, can actually provide a counterweight to some of the negative externalities of what's likely to come along with AI. Those things can't happen. The conversation can't even happen in the world where there is a ban. But I think that this idea that there is a soft ban has to at least be given credence, right? We had these moments earlier this year, the Fed, the FDIC, the OCC warning banks over crypto deposits. This is part of the Operation Choke Point, which we've talked about. Then even just today, you had a new report from the US Treasury that is focused on DeFi and is focused on DeFi being used by North Korea scammers to launder dirty money. This is the official U.S. policy position. This is where things are resolving. And again, this is an example of soft power being exerted. Now, I think one contrast that's worth making, because I don't necessarily think that U.S. policymakers would like this, but I think it's legitimate, is that you have a parallelism, an inverse parallelism between the way that the U.S. and China have handled crypto and Bitcoin. In China, you had a hard ban that was effectively a soft ban. And in the US, you have a soft ban, which is effectively a hard ban. And so what I mean by that is that China nominally banned Bitcoin mining and crypto mining in 2021, and then crypto exchange activities, but a lot fell through the cracks. Sometimes it was allowed to fall through the cracks. Sometimes it was allowed to be evaded, and it was always open for reinterpretation. We started to see the first little inklings of this earlier this year when a Bank of China ex-advisor calls for Beijing to reconsider it. This is not something that I believe would be allowed to get out into the ether, even if it was allowed to be said, without China's tacit approval, or at least wanting to test this messaging. And then, of course, even more than that, we've seen all of the moves by Chinese state-run banks, for example, in Hong Kong, now recruiting crypto companies to come bank with them in Hong Kong. So there's a shift there, right? China gave itself options. In the US, meanwhile, we would never have a hard ban. That's way too far, or at least we wouldn't until we started having this conversation with Professor Allen. However, this soft ban, this idea that senators can go after institutions loudly, decreasing confidence in them, as happened with Silvergate, or that the regulators can advise that crypto might not be safe and sound when it comes to banks, effectively freezing crypto companies out of the banking market, despite them being legal industries. That is a soft ban. That's an exertion of soft power that might as well be a hard ban in many ways. It has much the similar effect. I don't think that we want, in the way that most Americans think about America, to be a place where soft power is exerted to deny people fundamental freedom of choice. But it seems to be the context and the landscape that we're in right now, at least as it comes to crypto. And I think this is the most worrisome thing to me in many ways, is that this is quickly calcifying into partisan politics. And that is a huge bummer. I think that it has been historically massively to Bitcoin and crypto's benefit that there are opponents and allies on both sides of the aisle. Now, there remain opponents and allies on both sides of the aisle, but it's getting harder and harder and harder for Democrats in particular to go against the party line. The more that they're prominent voices, the more that the White House that they are effectively operating behind are anti and antagonistic to crypto. One of the things that I'm watching for is to see whether there will be more of the Democrats who have been long-term supporters of crypto breaking from the party ranks to support common sense initiatives, to support good regulation. And we're just going to have to wait and see. But for now, we have officially breached a new era of the policy discussion where banning crypto is back on the table in the US. We'll see what happens next. Peace, guys.